Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade systems, storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint and then demonstrate to you what that means within a management context. Today, we're going to continue on our conversation with HPE's Cloud Volumes. And more specifically, we're going to be looking at HPE's Cloud Volumes Backup. So certainly Cloud Volumes can be a replication partner for an on-premises nimble array. You could also create block storage and present it to AWS or Azure or something like that. In this case, HPE Cloud Volumes is going to be a backup target for your on-premises backup software. Really, so any software that supports the Catalyst protocol should be able to leverage this solution. And I'll talk a little bit about what Catalyst is in a little bit. In particular, we're going to be using Veeam today in our environment. I'm going to use Veeam to back up a virtualized environment, which you can see kind of to the left of this diagram. So obviously I have a hypervisor, some virtual machines, back-ended by some Reliant servers and a nimble storage system. One thing I'd like to point out, you can pretty much back up anything to HPE Cloud Volumes. You don't necessarily need HP servers or HP storages. As long as your backup software supports this Catalyst protocol, you should be able to leverage, backing up whatever you wish. It can be virtual machines, it can be raw data, things of that nature. You can back that up to Cloud Volumes. There are efficiencies you can out of getting your software integrated in with HPE solutions, such as Veeam has integration points with nimble storage solutions, 3PAR storage solutions, as well as Primera storage solutions. They integrate in with the snapshots of these solutions and make a more efficient backup. So it's better with these solutions, but not necessarily required. Now, obviously, your backup software, in our case Veeam, is going to want to back up or place your backups on something, and typically that's a D2D appliance or a disk-based deduped appliance, and that would be HPE Store Once. And generally speaking, you'd back up to CIFS, NFS, or something like that on these boxes. But one of the problems with doing that, if you wanted to create a more resilient strategy, or maybe have two of these D2D boxes, maybe one on site, maybe one at a secondary site, and you wanted to copy your backup jobs to the secondary site, what would happen is your backup job would go into the deduplicated disk-based appliance, again, Store Once. It'd compress and dedupe that all the way down, shrink it down as small as possible, but then to copy that to the secondary appliance, it would need to rehydrate that again, send that over the WAN to the secondary appliance, where that would dedupe it again. So to kind of solve that problem, a while ago, HPE came out with the Catalyst protocol, and basically most software that's out there, I'd say the who's who of software that's out there, does support this Catalyst protocol. So what happens when you use this is it's another target like CIFS or NFS is on your Store Once box, right? But once it's deduped and compressed on the box, you can move it around in a dedupe or compressed fashion. Right? So Catalyst is another type of protocol that you can put in your backup jobs, you can leverage as a part of your backup jobs. What HPE has done is taken the Catalyst protocol off of Store Once and wrapped it up into a secure client, which creates a secure connection back to HPE's cloud backup. So when you're using your backup software, you point to your backup repository just as you would point to an HPE Store Once appliance. It's just going to be this secure client. So this secure client could be pretty much anything. It doesn't need a lot of resources. It just needs to be a Linux box, and you'll install the secure client on that, and then you'll be ready to go as far as your backup solution is concerned. So with all that being said, let's explore how this works. Okay, we're up here in HPE's Cloud Volumes. We're underneath backup stores, right? That's up here, right above block volumes, which are the volumes you present to Azure or AWS, replica volumes, which would be the volumes that you're replicating from your on-premise nimble array. So we're working with backup stores. I already have a backup store here created. Right? It's not too hard to create this. You just got to click the plus sign over here. Right? You're going to give it a store name. You can give it a description if you want, and then you got to select the region. And after that, you just click Create Store, and you'll have this entity. The other piece is you got to download the secure client software. So what you'll do is you click over here and then download the secure client once you've created the backup store. And you can see that that's downloaded down here. And so we'll close that out. I already have this set up in our environment. So if I look at our VMware environment, I have this virtual machine here called HPE Cloud Volumes Catalyst. Installed it on a Ubuntu server. It's a real small Ubuntu server. You know, it's very basic. Now, how do you set this virtual machine up? How do you install that software? Well, what you'll do is you'll go in here and then you'll select this little guy icon over here and select Help Docs. And then you'll go under HPE Cloud Volumes Backup and creating a backup connection using the secure client. All right, so this is what's in that zip file that I downloaded. It includes a YAML file, as well as your prerequisites that you need for your Linux host. It's pretty much anything that's out there. They give you all the commands that you need to run on the host. If you're not Linux savvy, I wouldn't be too worried about this. You know, you can copy and paste a lot of this into the command line and get this up and running without a problem. All right, and that's what I've done to actually set up this VM, which we'll point to within our backup software. All right, so let's move over into Veeam. And we're under the home category. We can see our backup jobs. What we have to do first is create a backup repository. All right, so we can point to this secure client, which again is backended by HPE Cloud Volumes. So we'll go down to backup infrastructure. I'm going to right click on backup repository and add a backup repository. Now, what I want to select, because this is going to act a lot like an HPE Store Once dedupe box on our environment, I'm going to select deduplicated storage appliance, and I'm going to want to select this HPE Store Once. I'm going to give it a name. We'll call this Cloud Volumes Backup Repository. I'll click Next. Now I got to give it the IP address or the DNS name of my Store Once on it. And this is going to be your secure client. So if I go back into my virtualized environment, I'm going to grab this IP address because this is the IP address associated with this virtual machine. And we'll paste that in here. Now, as far as the setup process, you will get credentials that you'll need to plug in. If you don't have the credentials here, you'll just click Manage Credentials. You can add them in. Mine are already added in, so I'm just going to go down and dig those out. They're right here. And then we're going to click Next. All right. At this point, we need to select our Catalyst store. So I'm going to take the drop-down menu, and I have one sitting here. It's called Demo Catalyst. All right, so I have that selected. If we go back and look inside Cloud Volumes, you'll see that's the name of the backup store that I created. All right, we'll click Next again. All right, we've got a mount server here. All right, this is pretty typical for Veeam. Move forward. There's some components that need to be installed. They're already installed in my environment. And I'm going to click Apply. It's going to go through the process. This is probably a good point to kind of note out that I do fast forward some of this video, some of the dead space in this video, just to make sure the videos kind of stay short. So I will do that. If you want to get an accurate representation time, always check down below here. All right, so our repository has been created. So let's click Next, and then we'll click Finish. You can see that we have our repository created over here. So now we can use that as a part of a backup job. So let's go create a backup job. I'll go back up to Home. And we'll see that we have backup jobs over here. What I'm going to back up, if I go look inside my virtualized environment, is going to be this virtual machine right here. Obviously, you'll want to do a bunch more. All right, but this is a working virtual machine. We can log into it if we want to. Okay. All right, so let's create a backup job for this VM. So I'm going to right click on Backup, select Backup, Virtual Machine, VMware vSphere. Obviously, we could do this with Hyper-V as well. We'll give it a name. So why don't we call this Ingram Micro Backup. We'll click Next, and we'll add our virtual machine in. Again, that's in this cluster. Right over here. We'll click Next. Have to select the backup repository. This will be our new Cloud Volumes backup repository. Right? Set a retention policy if you want. We'll click next. There's some changes it wants to make because it is using the Catalyst protocol. This is something that Veeam does to make our life a little bit easier. So we're going to click yes. And of course, we could do application awareness. We could also do guest file system indexing if we wanted to. We'll click next. And obviously, you'll want to run this job automatically at whenever you felt like it. But we're going to click apply. And then I'm actually going to run the job now. And we're going to click finish. And we can see over here that the job is starting to run. We can open this up and take a look, go through the process. So certainly this will work with any storage. It's a little bit more efficient with HPE storage, and when I say that, I'm talking about Nimble-based systems or 3PAR or Primera-based systems. What it does is it actually goes through and uses the storage snapshot as a part of its backup process. So without that integration, what happens is Veeam reaches into the virtualized environment, takes a virtual machine backup, or snapshot, I should say, and then does the backup of the virtual machine. And that snapshot stays in place for the entire backup. Where that's different, obviously that snapshot could have an impact inside your environment as far as performance and things like that. Where backing it up with a HPE storage solution, what it does is Veeam goes in, takes the virtual machine snapshot, right, and then it goes through and takes the storage snapshot. And once the storage snapshot is created, it releases the virtual machine snapshot. So that happens pretty quickly. And then Veeam does the backup from the snapshot within the storage solution. So it kind of takes itself, the virtualized environment, kind of out of the way, and it's just Veeam talking with the storage solution. All right, our backup job has moved to completed here. So we'll go and we'll take a look at this backup job, open it up. We can take a look at the process. Some of the things we can see here is we can see the snapshots, we can see the storage snapshots being unexported, and again, that's some of that integration that I was talking about. Right, so if we take a look now under disk, see our backup job right here, and we can see our Ubuntu incident right here. All right, so let's take a look at how this looks in Cloud Volume. So let's open this up here. Let's see our capacity that's being utilized and our logical capacity. I think that's interesting. We're using about 3 gigs of space. It was expecting about 9, but let's take a look at the virtual machine itself. The virtual machine itself, VMware says it's thinly provisioned at about 16, 17 gigs of a 25 gig disk. So from 25 gigs, this all boiled down to about 3 gigs, right? And that's actually what you're paying for as far as the cloud provisioning is concerned. You're paying for this 3 gigs within the environment. All right, so let's do something dramatic. Let's go inside this environment. Let's take this virtual machine and let's power it off. I'll click yes. And then what I'll do is I'll delete it from disk. I'll click yes again. All right, she's gone, and let's start through the process of recovering this VM. So let's go back into Veeam. There's our virtual machine backup. You probably want to do restore the entire virtual machine. I'm going to show you an instant virtual machine recovery. This will work. You won't necessarily want to power it on. I'll tell you why in a little bit. But again, we'll do an instant virtual machine recovery. Again, we're selecting our virtual machine that we just backed up. We'll click next. All right, we're going to restore it to the original location. We'll leave the tags in place. You could put a restore reason. All right, and I'm not going to power this on after restoring. And the main reason that I'm not going to do that is because what's going to happen with instant virtual machine recovery in a backup to like a DDD box, what will happen is it's going to present an NFS target to your VMware environment. And that NFS environment is going to be presented from your Veeam server. And the Veeam server is going to connect to the backup environment, which is our secure client and our cloud environment. So in essence, what that means is we'd be running this virtual machine, if we powered it on, from off the cloud. And that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But it is nice to be able to see the virtual machine show up quickly within the environment and know it's alive and well. And then we could use the migration method to be able to move it back into production. We can see different things that are happening over here. Right now it's publishing the backup files. And now it's registering the virtual machine. So in a second, we should be able to look inside our environment and see this virtual machine show up. There we go. So let's wait for us to start the migration, but let's take a look. Make sure it's in place. There it is. There's our Ubuntu 3. And again, like I had mentioned, if we look at the storage on this guy, you'll see it's on this Veeam NFS share in the environment. So we have to move this back into the Nimble array off of this. And I would do that before I power it on if I was using this restore method. So let's do that. We'll click close. We'll go over to Instant Virtual Machine Recovery. I'll right click and I'll migrate it back into production. And you'd want to choose when you did this, because obviously this will have an impact on performance if you happen to turn on this virtual machine. But just the storage vMotion of this will cause some impact. But our machine's off, so we don't necessarily need to worry about this. And then we'll click Finish. And we'll get this migration task that will show up. Starting the migration. And let's take a look to see if the migration is starting to happen within the virtualized environment. And yep, it's starting to relocate it now. And then once it's back in the production environment, then you can power this back on and you can expect the performance that you normally had provisioned for the system. So that's HPE Cloud Volumes backup in conjunction with Veeam. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.